Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to the Rotary Club of York, the 26th largest Rotary Club in the world, and a club dedicated to imagining and living out the Rotary mission of service above self. I am Glenn Miller, the club president. Our opening song today, God Bless America and the Pledge of Allegiance, will be led by Leanne Wilson. Our invocation will be led by past District Governor Dick Brown, and our visitors and visiting Rotarians will be introduced by our own Lynn Morrison. Please take a moment to silence your electronic devices.
Rotarians and guests, please join me in God Bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the light with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. The following prayer is from the Jewish tradition, quite typically used on Shabbat, and may we reflect. May we see the day when war and bloodshed cease, when a great peace will embrace the whole world. Then nation shall not threaten nation, and humankind will not again know war. For all who live on earth shall realize we have not come into being to hate or destroy. We have come into being to praise, to labor, and to love. Compassionate God, bless all the leaders of all nations with the power of compassion. Fulfill the promise conveyed in Scripture. I will bring peace to the land, and you shall lie down, and no one shall terrify you. I will rid the land of vicious beasts, and it shall not be ravaged by war. Let love and justice flow like a mighty stream. Let peace fill the earth as the waters fill the sea. And let us say, Amen.
Lynn?
I have the pleasure of introducing our guests today. We have quite a few guests visiting. Guests, when I read your name, please stand at your space and remain standing until President Glenn welcomes you. We have quite a few visiting Rotarians today. Visiting us from North York is Ricardo Aguilar, Norm Basso, Danica Dallam, Gary LaTulip, Casey Nixon, and Melissa Markey. Visiting us from Lancaster Rotary, we are pleased to welcome Tom Gemmel and Chip Kirchner. Other guests visiting us today, Carol Alvarez, guest of the Youth Leadership, Mahari Kimbrough, Hope Kimbrough, Tiana Reed, and Noah Rodriguez, also guests of Youth Leadership, Louise Bortner and Sherry Moore, guests of our speaker, Alex Gibson, guest of past President Rob Bowen, Ted Wheeler, guest of JT Hand, and Chad Barger, guest of past President Ann Druck.
Friends, we're delighted to have you with us today visiting. Our club, I hope you've already discerned, is a lively and diverse group of community leaders, all of whom join me in welcoming you today and hoping that you will return and visit with us again and perhaps even consider joining our ranks. Members, please help me welcome our visitors and our visiting Rotarians. Thank you. Before I go on, let me just make note of something. Our speaker is desperately on his way, but had the joy of being stuck on the Pennsylvania Turnpike en route from Philadelphia because of an accident. We're expecting him to arrive right at about the stroke of that time when he should be speaking. So we will continue our announcements and so forth apace. If he's not here when we get to that point, we'll either enjoy some more conversation and fellowship, or maybe all the past presidents can come up and, you know, we'll do a concert for you or something. But so just let's see how that goes, shall we? So as you have just noticed a moment ago, we have a contingent of visiting Rotarians from the Rotary Club of North York. They are here with us today, including particularly their president, Ricardo Aguilar, at my invitation, because this is their 30th anniversary of existence as a club. They have just celebrated that anniversary with a gala event downtown at the Valencia. And as the mother club that in many respects helped to give birth to this club, we are happy to know that they are alive and well and thriving and providing a great model for what a Rotary Club is all about. We're proud to call you our partners and our friends, and I would like to invite Ricardo to the microphone to just say a word or two.
Hey, thank you, Glenn. It's always great to come back to the mothership, folks. Rotary Club of York North. As we say, we are small but mighty. We're the 2,644th biggest club in Rotary. I still need to research that one. Glenn told me that I only had 1 minute. Lynn told me I had 12 seconds. Us guys, we're trainable. We listen to you ladies, so I'll keep this on the short side. We can't thank all of you enough for this invitation. Being here is so much fun and an inspiration. For all of us here, our family, as you know, we're an offshoot of Downtown Rotary. So now we invite all of you to be our guest. Please come back and see us on a Thursday morning for breakfast. Thank you, folks.
We need to fill time. I think we're going to invite Ricardo back to the microphone, actually. Thank you so much, Ricardo, and thank you again, friends, for being here with us today. A few other announcements before we continue. The Rotary Club of York Board will meet on December the 8th, that is tomorrow at 8 a.m. via Zoom. The IDEA committee will meet on the 12th of December at 8 a.m. also via Zoom. Please join the Fellowship Committee for happy hour on Thursday, December the 15th at Love Drafts Unplugged on North George Street from 5 to 7 p.m. Enjoy the spirit of the season with some spirits and great conversation. If you are interested, as always, please RSVP to the Fellowship Grand Poobah, Rob Bowen. And while you are replying to Rob on that one, there is another opportunity that's just been made available. A luncheon and tour of Biotechnique LLC is tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, January the 17th at the noon hour. You will recall that Biotechnique's CEO was our speaker last week and has graciously extended that invitation. So again, RSVP to Rob by Wednesday, January the 11th for that opportunity. For our program on December 21st, the last one of this year, we will meet off-site at York College. I am delighted to be able to host you at the college this year. We will enjoy lunch in the Yorkview Room and then proceed to the Demeester Recital Hall for a holiday version of Rave Reviews featuring local high school students performing and choreographed by Lynn Bergdahl. Reservations, as always, for our off-site gatherings are required. You will find a link in tomorrow's announcer to easily register online, or you can use the fancy QR code that you will find at your table today. The deadline for registration is the 14th of December, so please get those registrations in. The CEF Board of Directors approved a donation of $2,500 to the Rotary Club of Czechnin, Poland, who the Rotary Club of Lidice is working closely with to provide much-needed generators for Ukraine. You will recall that we had the Lidice Club president with us here last week to talk about that unique opportunity. In addition, CEF disaster funds will match donations from our club up to a total of $2,500 in support of this effort. As I mentioned last week, we have already, through the generosity of several Rotarians, met that match requirement. But please do not feel that that means you shouldn't give. We want to make this as successful as humanly possible. Today is the deadline for making that gift, so please see me or Lynn after the meeting today if you wish to participate. The membership committee extends congratulations to Ron Hirschner on his 30th anniversary as a member of our club. Is Ron here today by chance? Well, these established Rotarians aren't doing too well in showing up. Dave Meckley here today? No, he's not here today either. All right. All right. Okay. Well, let's give a round of applause to Ron anyway, in his absence. And finally, as a member of the fellowship committee, it is past President Dick Julian's job to extend birthday wishes to our members on behalf of the club, and a superb job he does. It seems only fitting, therefore, that all of us should take a moment today to wish Dick a very happy birthday. Is he here? I am 0 for 3. This is great. Well, let's hope that he's watching online, and let's wish him a happy birthday. I hope Josh George is here. It tells me that he's next on the hit parade. Josh is going to introduce and induct 3 new members of our club. Josh?
So President Glenn had it right on one account and not on the other. I am here, as you can see, but there are only 2 new members with us today. So the agenda must have been incorrect again. So, but I'd like to welcome everybody and introduce you to 2 new members today. First, Kamal Patel. And let me get my paper out because I can't remember all of this biographical information. She is a graduate of LJ College of Commerce in Ahmedabad, India, where she earned a Bachelor of Commerce degree, as well as the Indian Institute of Planning and Management, where she earned an MBA. She works with Members First Federal Credit Union, where she is a commercial relationship manager. Her civic activities include, she is a board member for the PA Immigration Resource Center. She's a volunteer for the Hari Temple and the Hari School, and she's a volunteer with the Indian Association of York. And she is a relatively recent graduate of Leadership York's leadership training program. Her hobbies include gardening, and I love this one, creating fusion recipes. Didn't get a chance to talk about that at the table, but we'll do that after the introduction here. She is married to Jamin Patel, and they have 2 kids, Gia, who is 9, and Nia, who is 6. And interestingly, her father is a long-term Rotarian in Texas. So she does have a little bit of Rotary history in her blood as well. And she was proposed for membership by Sanam Ruid. Ladies and gentlemen, Kamal Patel. And second today, the taller of the 2, as you can see, we have Shane Bamer. Shane is a graduate of Blair Academy, which is in New Jersey, and he went to Villanova University, where he earned his BS in business management. And he is the president of Paul Davis Restoration of the Susquehanna Valley. So unfortunately, if your house ever burns down, or you have a flood in your basement, or your business has problems and needs to be repaired, this is your guy. And we were talking at the table about how he meets people at all of the worst times in their lives, typically. So perhaps he can be your counselor on the side if you need a little bit of that as well. His volunteer activities includes service as a board member for the Children Deserve a Chance Foundation, and his hobbies include golf and skiing. He is married to Caitlin, and they have a son, Cole, who is 7. And Shane was proposed for membership by Aaron Jacobs. Ladies and gentlemen, Shane Bamer.
Friends, we are delighted to welcome you to the ranks of the Rotary family. We hope that your full involvement in our club we are confident that your involvement in our club will make us a better club. And my hope is that your involvement with us will make you a better citizen of this wonderful community that we call home. Rotarians, let's welcome once again our 2 new members. And by the way, the agenda wasn't wrong. The president was wrong. So it was 2 new members today. And now Matt Hoffman will present our students of the month. Matt.
Hello, fellow Rotarians. It's my pleasure today to introduce you Student of the Month coming to us from York County Regional Charter. We'll be recognizing and honoring Mahari and Noah, both students in the 11th grade, very distinguished and involved in their academic world, and I see them going far in life. Hopefully, we'll introduce them again as a new member in a couple of years. First off, I'll introduce Mahari. She is involved in the National Honor Society and really enjoys spending her time dancing and reading hip hop, contemporary, tap, and ballet. So she's very involved in that way, and she wants to pursue a career in special education. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mahari.
Hi, guys. Oh, hold up, wait a minute. Can I have my? Thank you. Sorry, I have my speech on my phone. I'm sorry. Thank you. That's my mom, guys. Okay, so when I sit and think about an activity or an experience that is important to me, it is hard to answer with just one thing. I could talk about my family and friends, my love of dance, or something as simple as spending time with my cat. I think about my time during COVID when everything was closed and I was home bored. It was a time when my best friend was reading. Reading has gotten me through a lot of experiences in my life, but has also introduced me to new and different activities and ideas as well. Books have given me the opportunity to escape from reality. I remember when my mom first introduced me to the book, The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. It was the first time a book had moved me the way that it did. It was amazing to read a book about a young Black girl who had taken on similar experiences to me. And it was amazing to watch how she handled those problems that were thrown at her. Those types of books were what expanded my love of reading. I didn't know there were so many books that were dedicated to any type of situation: heartbreak, love, family, race. The opportunities were endless. It is also why I encourage others to read no matter the age. You never know how many stories are begging to be told. And you also never know what type of things you are interested in until you pick up a book and start reading. Thank you.
Next, I'll introduce Noah to us. Noah is involved in three high-level courses, which is my understanding that those courses help him get college credits. So he is well on his way to entering into college with at least a year's worth of credits applied to him already. So he is studying hard. He currently, that's what he does. He studies. He's an up and coming star, I hear, and is really excelling. He really enjoys math and biology and really wants to enter into the field of chemistry as a biochemical engineer. That's my understanding. So, ladies and gentlemen, Noah.
Hello. For my special experience, I want to talk about York Academy. And York Academy is a school that I've been attending since second grade. So I've been here for about 10 years. It's been a while. And throughout the school years, I wasn't really the best student. I struggled, I goofed off, I didn't do my work, and ultimately that hurt me. But I sat down and rethought about my life. And from second to about ninth grade, I didn't really care. I was a really bad student, and I didn't do much to give back to what the school was trying to give me, which was a good education. And in ninth year, when COVID hit, I didn't do much. And that ultimately ended in me failing grade. And coming back into ninth grade again, I had an amazing teacher who was Miss Burrow, my math teacher, and she constantly supported me throughout the entire year, encouraging me to move forward, to work, to go on, to work harder, and I did. And I came out of ninth grade, passed, went on to 10, did the same thing again. And all the teachers are really supportive, and they try your best even if you don't succeed. And I don't really have the best home environment. So coming to school is really helpful. It gets me away from all the stresses. It provides me an environment in which I'm safe. And now I'm in 11th grade, back with the teachers that taught me back in 6th grade, who knew a completely different me. And I turned everything around. And now they're really proud. And now I'm trying to stick together, go to college, get a degree, pass. And I can't do that without the support of my teachers, the principals, the counselor, all of you. That's it.
Our heartfelt congratulations to both of you for an honor that is very clearly well-deserved. It is always heartening for us in this club to see examples of the leaders that are going to follow us, both in this community as leaders and maybe even in this club as leaders, as Matt so well put it a moment ago. And Noah, let me just say that turnaround story, I suspect there are a lot of people in this room that have very similar stories to tell. So congratulations to both of you for all that you have accomplished. And let's give them another round of applause, shall we? We are at that point in our program when I would normally be inviting Dr. Hoover to come to the microphone and introduce our speaker. Do we have an update on his arrival perchance? We do not. All right. Well, I'm going to invite you to resume fellowship at your tables. We will be back in a few minutes, I hope. Meanwhile, I'll try to put the past presidential chorus together as we work on this. Would you all please take your seats? This means you. Well, you're in luck. You don't have to listen to the past presidents sing Christmas carols to you. It is my pleasure to welcome to the podium past District Governor Dr. Ben Hoover, who will introduce our program for the day. Dr. Hoover.
It is my pleasure to again introduce Dr. Scott Moore. For a while there, I thought I was going to have to read excerpts from his book. He graduated from Princeton with an AB in Public and International Affairs, summa cum laude, with certificates in environmental studies and in Chinese language and culture. He spent a year at Peking University as a Fulbright scholar and was then named a Rhodes Scholar to study at Oxford University, earning an MS with distinction in environmental change and management in 2010, and stayed on to earn his PhD in politics in 2013. Following stints as a postdoctoral research fellow at Harvard Kennedy School and positions with the State Department and the World Bank, Scott joined the faculty at the University of Pennsylvania in 2018, where he is the Director of China Programs and Strategic Initiatives. Scott's 3 pages of publications include pieces for the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. His latest book, China's Next Act, was recently published by the Oxford University Press. Please welcome back Dr. Scott Moore. Scott.
Thanks so much, Ben. Hello, everyone. I think this is the 3rd time I've had the pleasure of meeting with you all. The first time I've been late, so I hope you will you'll give me that that little bit of slack. But I do apologize. I was stuck for about half an hour on the turnpike, and I dare say we've all been there at one time or another. I just regret that it was today of all days. In any case, it's a pleasure to be back with you. And at Ben's suggestion and invitation, what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about some current developments related to China and what that means for the United States and especially the business sector. Just as a quick show of hands, maybe at the outset, how many folks have been to China? Fair number. How many of you have business interests in China or work for a firm that does have significant business interests in China? Okay, so most of you will kind of be familiar in general terms with some of the things that I'm gonna talk about. And Ben kindly mentioned that I have a recent book that came out that I'm going to try to draw from. And what I want to do is very briefly touch on what I think are 5 key issue areas when it comes to China and what that means for us here in the United States. 3 of which are ones that we're used to talking about: politics, economics, and international relations. And the last 2 of which I think we're not as used to talking about. And those are the environment, especially climate change, and technology. And those are the 2 issues that I really try to address in my book, China's Next Act. And in fact, the argument that I make is that developments in those 2 areas, in environment on one hand and technology in the other, are really reshaping the other 3 areas: politics, economics, and international relations. So I'll try to say a little bit more about that all very briefly. But first of all, politics. So China recently completed something known as the 20th Party Congress, which is something that happens every 5 years. And it's the most important political gathering that exists in the Chinese political calendar. We have, presidential elections every 4 years. This is China's roughly equivalent timeline, occasion to renominate the top leadership, as well as to have a gathering of all senior Chinese Communist Party officials. It's a really big deal. And is not something that's happened since 2017. And when it comes to China, a lot has unfolded in that period that we'll talk about: the trade war with the United States, COVID-19 pandemic, and rising tensions with other countries, just to name a few. So it was a very significant event. It was also one that held very few surprises in that Xi Jinping was granted a third term as party general secretary, the top job in the Chinese political system. And just as a sort of quick note, some of you who may have kind of studied or been familiar with the Soviet Union in the days before its fall may remember that in sort of in communist political systems, you basically have two parallel governments, so to speak. You have the actual state, and then you have the Communist Party, which kind of leads the state. And those are kind of two separate but parallel systems. So Xi Jinping has two hats that he wears. One is as the state president of China, and the other is as the leader or general secretary of the Chinese Communist Party. In both of those roles, Xi Jinping was granted, as I said, an unprecedented third term. And that's significant because no Chinese leader since Mao Zedong has had that longevity. In fact, sort of as a reaction to the excesses of the Mao period, the Chinese Communist Party had put in place a norm, similar to what we have in the United States as a two-term limit for presidential terms, essentially a two-term limit for those two, for a single individual occupying those two top roles. Xi Jinping in this last party Congress broke that norm and was granted an unprecedented third term. What that means concretely, I think, is a more authoritarian China, which prioritizes political control and especially the control of the Chinese Communist Party above all else. That kind of gets to the international relations set of things, which is, of course, something that concerns us quite a lot here in the US. And it's no surprise, all of you will know that as a general matter, relations between China and the United States have been worsening since around 2017, at least, and arguably much further back. And there are lots of aspects of that, lots of reasons for it. But the one that I think is particularly worth mentioning now is Taiwan. And very, very briefly, we can go into this in much more detail. But this has basically been an issue that's kind of been fudged since 1979, when the United States recognized the People's Republic of China. And essentially the kind of compromise diplomatically was to say, we're going to sort of both maintain a lot of ambiguity over how we view Taiwan as a sort of independent entity. And we're basically just going to agree not to talk about it and not to let that cause a breakdown in relations. And what we've seen on both sides in the last, especially 5 years or so, is that both sides have kind of chipped away at the diplomatic fig leaf that kept that ambiguity. And so now we're at a very, very dangerous point, and that was underscored when House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan back in August, where China's been increasingly clear that any move on the part of Taiwan to declare independence or any move on the part of the United States to support that independence would be across a red line, probably be cause for war. And on the US side, there's been an increasing kind of message to Beijing that if Taiwan were to move toward independence, the United States would support it. Hard to see an immediate off-ramp there. We can certainly talk more about that. Economics. And it's maybe worth saying that normally, and especially prior to 5 years ago, this would have been the first thing to go to because trade and investment was the bedrock of the US-China relationship. And numerically, that's still true. In the sense that it remains, we remain our largest trading partners. And as you all know, basically US manufacturing and any sort of trading goods depends on inputs from China. That hasn't changed. What has changed is that the volume of direct trade has been decreasing since around 2018. And we've seen the rise of intermediary countries like Vietnam, mainly as a result of the tariffs that were imposed by the Trump administration on a huge swath of Chinese imports. And this has kind of chipped away at the trade relationship. On top of that, the US and many other countries have started instituting, and this may have affected some of your businesses, export controls, restrictions on trade and investment. If you have Chinese investors they're going to face a lot more scrutiny from US regulators in almost any field. So for all of those reasons, the volume of trade and investment's been declining. And so that kind of part of the relationship, which used to be the bedrock, has been shrinking, though it remains very important and very robust. Very briefly, the other two areas. First of all, environment and climate change. This is something that I became interested for a very simple reason. China is the world's largest source of greenhouse gas emissions and therefore the single most significant contributor to climate change. Without significant action by China to reduce those emissions, we're toast, so to speak. Fortunately, China has put in place some pretty ambitious commitments to that, but there are a lot of questions around how fast and how completely those commitments are going to be met. And that actually gets to the final area that I just wanted to touch on, which is technology. And another aspect of China's development in recent years has been that in a lot of fields, Chinese firms that once were fairly far behind their foreign competitors have leapfrogged ahead, in some cases a generation or two, in technology with foreign competitors. Some of the most well-known examples of this are in areas like fifth generation telecommunications, where Huawei is a really major globally competitive firm in that space. But there are lots of other examples: artificial intelligence, robotics. You can almost go in any technology area and point to at least some subfields in which Chinese firms are really starting to narrow the gap with foreign competitors. That being said, there does still remain a gap. And one of the things I talk about in the book is how I actually think there's not too much risk for US firms necessarily being outcompeted in terms of advanced technology. But what may be a concern is China's ability just to produce technology at such great scale and at such low cost that then there's a really significant advantage on the deployment side of the ledger. And I think that does create a lot of significant challenges for us. That's been a very quick overview, but I hope it sort of compresses what would have otherwise been a much longer one. And hopefully that'll leave some time for questions and discussion before we all break. But thank you. And if maybe I could stay up here for questions. Does that work? Okay. Okay, great. And I'm happy to then expand, flag issues that I skipped over far too quickly, and we can go into more detail. I saw a gentleman in the center there. Yeah. Sure, it's certainly a significant one. So the question is really about the relationship between colonialism, especially Western colonialism, and sort of how that's affected politics and sort of thinking in contemporary China. And quite a lot is the brief answer, but to expand on that a little bit. There's a kind of concept that you hear a fair amount from Chinese interlocutors, known as the century of national humiliation. So anybody who's been to China, or done business in China, are you familiar with that term, that concept? So basically the idea is that from the late 19th century into the 20th century, China, in a period of relative national weakness, was exploited by foreign powers. And one of the, especially through a series of so-called unequal treaties. One example of that is the treaty that ceded Hong Kong to Britain. And the argument is that foreign powers took advantage of a period of relative weakness in China in order to gain and sort of foist these unfair terms on China, and effectively hobble China's growth and development. And especially in sort of the modern period, the historical argument of the Chinese Communist Party is that the party rescued China from that period of weakness and exploitation by foreign powers. And especially under the current top leader, Xi Jinping, there's this concept known as national rejuvenation. And really that's sort of the latest gloss on this idea that China is regaining strength and power sufficient to prevent anything like that period of exploitation and weakness at the hands of foreign powers. So it plays that kind of historical memory and influence plays a really important role in contemporary politics and just sort of in, a lot of people's mindset. I should probably add here, probably goes without saying, but I should make it clear anyway. When you're talking about a country as large as diverse as China, inevitably you have to generalize, and so I'm certainly generalizing quite a bit here. But I think that's fair to say in terms of the lingering political impact of that idea of the century of national humiliation. And the need for rejuvenation. By the way, just sort of relating to the point about Taiwan and to the extent that, we're sort of concerned about or thinking about Chinese military expansion or modernization, that's a core point that always comes up when you read like People's Liberation Army documents, is China needs to be militarily strong to prevent the type of exploitation it saw in the past from foreign powers. I see a gentleman on the side here, and then we'll move over toward this side of the room. Sir.
Comment on the Chinese government's interest and its influence on the social media giant TikTok and the propaganda threat that TikTok poses to our youth.
Yeah, fascinating question, and thank you for bringing it up. It's a great example, again, of this sort of China's growing role in almost every technological area, and in this case, social media. And it's particularly interesting. This all unfolded in the last 3 years. Before 2019, no one had heard of TikTok or its parent company, ByteDance, which was based in Beijing. Now the ownership structure is a little more complicated, but it's essentially owned by a Chinese company, TikTok. It shot to the top of the download charts in 2019, way ahead of Facebook, WhatsApp, all of the most popular apps at the time, all of which were developed in the West. And so TikTok was this sort of unique example, and remains pretty much a unique example of a Chinese developed app that has really become a huge hit in the West and in the US. As part of that, there was concern starting really around the same time, 2019, about certain aspects of TikTok as an app that may give TikTok's parent company, or presumably other actors, the Chinese state, for example, access to an unusual amount of data gathered through the app. So some cybersecurity researchers in 2020 reported, I talk about this in the book, that TikTok appeared to include an unusual layer of encryption, meaning secrecy, essentially, below which there appeared to be kind of a backdoor to collect certain types of data from a user's phone that wasn't part of the user agreement. So in other words, there was sort of some fishy, sort of stuff under the hood, if you want to just sort of, think of it that way and really simplify. Hasten to add that a lot of apps have similar things, that they aren't confined, that kind of dodgy aspect isn't confined to TikTok. The thing that does make it particularly concerning is this idea that data, that information may be accessible to the Chinese state, which is different than if you have a similar vulnerability or similar kind of, fishy aspect to your Facebook Messenger app, for example. So that's really where the concern comes in. I won't claim to be able to weigh that concern very effectively, beyond saying, I do think it's worth keeping in mind that a lot of apps have these types of vulnerabilities. And it's harder than it sounds, even if you assume that, okay, the, data that's being gathered while you're using TikTok is, being fed into the Chinese government or something. It's much harder to take that information and do something really nefarious or useful with it than it might sound. So it's certainly disconcerting, the idea that, our, sort of personal data might be accessible to the Chinese state. But it's not clear to me that it's a huge, sort of red alert type situation. Yes, sir, in the middle. More the former than the latter. But this is, I think, to me, it is a great example of the direction of China under Xi Jinping. And this is a little bit of more of a, kind of interpretation than we know this for a fact. But I'll give you, sort of my interpretation of what led us to the protests and what they sort of mean. Which is that going back to the early period of COVID-19, China's approach was to lock down huge areas to prevent any transmission whatsoever. So the first major response was to basically seal the internal borders of a province of 30 million people and just say, nope, that's it, no movement. And that approach, while dramatic, was pretty effective in the first few waves of COVID-19. China only had about 3,000 deaths from COVID-19 up until the Delta wave about 18 months ago. So it worked pretty well, basically, though it was sort of extreme and economically costly. And Xi Jinping was quick to claim credit for that, and not just credit in general, but personal credit, and credit that was due to essentially the superiority of the Chinese political system. We're able to move quickly and to, kind of to seal off a whole province, while, you look at Europe and the US and it's total chaos, the response to COVID-19. That seemed like a reasonable argument until we got to Omicron, which is so transmissible that lockdowns don't work, or certainly don't work nearly as well as they did for previous variants. So then you started having lots of transmission while still having all the economic and social costs of isolation, essentially. And so, sort of as a subnote to that, lots of people speculated that after the 20th Party Congress, Xi was basically going to let up on some of the COVID restrictions. When it became apparent that that wasn't going to immediately happen, that I think is what triggered the protests themselves. I think in terms of ultimate impact, it really is mostly about the COVID restrictions themselves. And so I think as those are loosened, and I think they will be over the next few weeks and months, I think that pressure will dissipate. What I think will remain is a huge breach of trust between a huge swath of Chinese society and the state and the government. And at the risk of a huge generalization here, I think it's generally fair to say that for most, most particularly urban Chinese, there's just a sense that your life keeps kind of getting better. Your opportunities keep expanding. And what happened very dramatically with the COVID restrictions is all of a sudden your opportunities started contracting and your world started contracting. And I think that, won't necessarily translate into calls for the government to step down or anything, but I think it does contribute to a lasting breach of trust. And I think that, will complicate future crises, but I don't think they'll, immediately lead to any major political change or reform. Yes, sir, over here on the left. Yeah, and it's that it's linked very much. A great question, first of all, linked to COVID-19 in that, while surveillance was prevalent before COVID-19. Now it's totally pervasive because one of the public health measures that's instituted is you have an app on your phone that shows your testing results and your is also geo-located. So it tracks you essentially. So, everybody now has some type of, or almost everybody has some, mechanism by which the state, at least theoretically, keeps tabs on you, directly. So it's certainly a huge, I think from, a Western or an American perspective, it is a pretty intolerable, kind of violation of basic expectations of privacy and basic rights. And it's undoubtedly a pretty effective tool to deter people from, doing things that are illegal or sort of out of line, because it's very easy for then the state to sort of track and identify you individually through that. That being said, it's not a perfect situation. It's not a perfect kind of setup. If you know what you're doing, you can evade detection through the tracking apps. So it's not a foolproof or perfect system. And it does have some beneficial uses. I'm not going to claim that they outweigh the, kind of human rights violations that they enable, but it does have some beneficial uses when it comes to like public health monitoring and things like that. Now, this is a very different example, but I do mention in the book several local authorities in China have apps to report pollution, which has actually been pretty effective because historically speaking, it was very easy for factories that were, polluting the water or something just to buy off regulators. And having that mechanism for citizens to directly report a suspected violation was a pretty effective way of circumventing that kind of corrupt network. So anyway, I'm not, trying to claim that it outweighs the negatives, but there are multiple uses, I guess, is what I would say. Maybe with your permissions, could I maybe take both of them and answer quickly? Okay, we'll go sir in the back and then the gentleman on the side. Yeah, absolutely. And the percentage would take me a second to calculate, and I don't trust my math right now, but it's about 80 million. The membership of the Chinese Communist Party is about 80 million out of a country of 1.3 billion or so. In terms of China, Russia, I think this is a relationship that's going to basically it's tied to how bad relations are between both of those countries, China and Russia individually, to the West. When relations are bad, as they are now for both China and Russia, that tends to drive the two countries together. So as long as that remains true, I think the countries will continue to grow closer. And I think they're going to keep growing closer short of becoming formal allies. If there is a change in either country's relationship with the West, I think that'll cause them to drift further apart. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Moore, thank you for persevering on the turnpike. That was a wonderful presentation, particularly since you didn't even catch your breath coming in the door. We very much appreciate it. We live in a very small world, and you've helped us to understand more deeply some of the complexities of that world. In honor of his presentation today, Dr. Moore has signed the book plate in the book, The People We Keep by Allison Larkin, which will be donated appropriately enough to the York Regional Academy Charter School. And we'll get that book to you just as soon as Dr. Moore signs the book plate now that he is done speaking. Next week, we will hear from Michael Price, a writer and co-executive producer on The Simpsons for the past 20 years, 20 seasons. He will present a behind-the-scenes look at the long-running animated series. How are Simpsons episodes written? It's a group effort. How hard is it to keep the show going strong in its 34th season? Very hard. And do the writers predict the future? They don't. Michael will shed light on all things Simpson and answer all of your questions about the show. Michael will be joining us via Zoom, so he won't have to worry about the Pennsylvania Turnpike or Route 4 in Los Angeles or any of those concerns. And we will, of course, be right here in the ballroom at CCY. Please note that this meeting will not be recorded and posted on YouTube. So you must be here at CCY or watching live on Zoom next week in order to enjoy that. Our closing quote today is from Henry Miller, no relation. And the quote is, "Imagination is the voice of daring." Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Have a great afternoon. This meeting is adjourned.